Good afternoon, everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me by raising your hand on the GoToWebinar application. Sahil, Stephanie, Marcia, Ethan, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Welcome and thank you to everyone for joining us for self-scoring proposals, getting to understand OASIS Plus, Alliant 3, T4NG-2 opportunities. That is a mouthful. Can't wait to learn all the stuff that we're going to learn. I've never proctored this webinar, so I'm going to be learning along with you all. My name is Kelly Peterson, and I'm the Client Services Coordinator for the Virginia Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Virginia PTAC is now considered an Apex Accelerator and is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the Department of Defense and also a sponsored program of George Mason University. If you're a Virginia-based business and you're not already signed up as a client, please consider doing so to take advantage of our free one-on-one counseling services. We also have a subscription bid match service available to all of our clients. And if you're interested, I recommend you take a look at the sample profile on our website. More generally, I encourage you to familiarize yourself with our website, virginiaptac.org, especially the resources page. If you have questions, you can always email us at ptac@gmu.edu. If you're based outside of Virginia, you can take advantage of your local Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or Apex Accelerator. You can find your local office at the Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Centers website, aptac-us.org. You can also find the link on the bottom of our locations page on our website. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. We will make the slides available as a PDF. They're available as soon as the attendance is taken. You can find them on the eCenter where you signed up. It'll be an attachment at the bottom of the class description. You'll need to be logged in to see it, but you can also use the auto login link in your reminder email. That'll take you straight there. It's visible as soon as your attendance is documented. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them in the questions window, not the chat box. And I'll relay them. We're going to actually wait until the end because there's a lot of good content. So we're going to wait till the end for Q&A. If we happen to run up on time and we don't get to them all, we will make sure that we follow up with you after the webinar. For those of you who are joining us by phone only and do not have a screen in front of you, please make sure you email us at ptac@gmu.edu to let us know you attended so we can document that. This is a live webinar. Today's webinar will be presented by Ab Vand. Ab is a VP of Capture at GDI Consulting, a company helping federal contractors prepare their proposals for the federal government opportunities. Ab has personally managed or supervised over 150 self-scoring proposals for different small businesses or large companies and is considered an SME and thought leader in the area of self-scoring proposals. He has held training webinars for APMP chapters and individual businesses, as well as being a contributor to the Washington Technology Online magazine. Ab is a new instructor with Virginia PTAC, and we appreciate Ab's talent and his time. And Ab, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. As Kelly said, we have a lot to cover, so I'll go right into that. First, I wanted to let you know an outline of the webinar. We'll hit on the history of self-scoring evaluations very quickly, and then we'll explain what is self-scoring and the self-scoring proposals that have recently popped up by different agencies. What's the process and the scoring system and everything. Then we'll take a deep dive into OASIS Plus as an example. I will cover the others, as I mentioned, as Kelly mentioned, Alliant 3, T4NG2, and the others. But our deep dive will be into OASIS Plus, which is the largest and probably the most wanted one during 2023. Then we'll go into explaining how proposals, in fact, are prepared for these self-scoring evaluation systems. We'll touch on partnering, which is an important factor in these self-scoring proposals. And then I'll try to share some experience with you based on the work we've done during the past few years, what can go wrong, how you can actually maximize your score, and different factors. At the end, I'll say a little bit very quickly about services of GDIC, and then we'll go into the Q&A, and I hope that I'll be able to answer all your questions. If not, we'll take them down. I'll answer them afterwards and send them back to Virginia PTAC so that they can actually let you know. Okay, having said that, let's start with the history of self-scoring evaluation. Okay, so as you know, CICA, or the Competition in Contracting Act, dates to 1984 and has its origins in the 19th century. And nearly all FARs and DFARs, all the regulations that the government uses, are based on that. Now, agencies have been having difficulty with this old-fashioned so to say, rules and regulations. They wanted to conduct acquisitions for new kind of requirements. They want to do business with new industries, evolving industries, evolving markets. So this was a hindrance. They've been working on different things, but in 2013, the GSA finalized its source selection technique, which is this self-scoring system, on the OASIS GWAC. So OASIS was the first that GSA actually fully implemented the self-scoring system and went all the way for it. There was a protest on it, but once that protest was overruled, GSA announced that it's going to use that system throughout all its future major opportunities. So this technique, this self-scoring system, has kept GSA from having to read and evaluate hundreds of technical and management proposals, especially when you get very large procurements and 100 or 200 people, sometimes 500 or 600 proposals are sent to the agency. They just don't have the manpower to go through each and every one of them very quickly and provide it. That's why it takes a year sometimes to actually award some contracts. So GSA wanted to resolve this. So the focus on experience and past performance that they have put in, and we'll go into detail of that, into these self-scoring proposals simplifies the evaluation process. And its aim was to put together pools of the most qualified contractors. And here, price is not an important factor. So in most of these self-scoring proposals, you either don't provide price or just give them very generalized pricing. So this moves the price to the task order level because these are major IDIQs. And we'll go into detail on all of these. So to be familiar with some of the self-scoring bids that have gone during the past few years, GSA Alliant, a large IT project, started 2009, 10-year project. It was a hybrid one when it came out. So it had some self-scoring and some standard traditional proposal writing. Then GSA Alliant 2 came, which was for unrestricted and small businesses, $50 billion. And it was July 2018 till June 2023, plus 5 years option. GSA OASIS, the original one, plus some on-ramps for both unrestricted and small business. It had different pools, as they call them, for small businesses, including 8A only. GSA VETS 2, which was only for STB, OSB companies. It's for started 2018, goes all the way to February 2028. This was VETS 2. Original VETS was 2007 to 2017. Then there was GSA HCATS, which is for training and staffing. Two pools, $5.75 billion, May 2016, and it had its on-ramps in 2019 and 2020 to include more companies. There was also the Air Force SBs 2017. It was a hybrid one, so both self-scoring and traditional proposal writing. Navy NAVSEA opportunities. NAVSEA is one of the agencies that puts a lot of self-scoring multiple award opportunities. So it works like GSA. There was the Securities and Exchange, One IT in 2019. Then there was GSA and DoD Astro, which was a major opportunity in 2020. The HHS, NIH, CIO SP4, probably many people have heard of that, 2022, and GSA Polaris in 2022. So these were the ones that have been announced and procured. Now, what is the important ones in 2023 are 4 currently. GSA OASIS Plus, which is probably the largest. It has an open ceiling. The previous OASIS had a $60 billion ceiling, and that was totally obligated before actually the end of the contract. So the new OASIS Plus, they have requested and were granted an open ceiling for it, in addition to the fact that they have expanded the areas that it covers. It covers 8 domains: management and advisory, research and development, technical and engineering, intelligence and cybersecurity. And then they've added 3 more: logistics, environmental, and facilities. So many are considering that this will go way over $100 billion. And they have said that they're going to add or incorporate HCATs into it and a few others. So some other opportunities are going to be incorporated into OASIS Plus, and it's a 10-year project. I think any company that should go after this. It is a non-IT opportunity, but many IT companies are actually going on into it. If you can prove that the type of IT work that you did was towards technical and engineering, or perhaps cybersecurity, and those areas, you can actually go for it. It just doesn't cover pure software programming. And it has different small set-asides plus large business track. There is the VA T4NG2. It's IT and health IT by VA, $61 billion. They're going to award 15 STVOSB awards and 15 large businesses. So it's not as large as OASIS Plus. I forgot to mention, we will go into it in detail, but OASIS Plus does not have a limit in the number of companies that they're going to award. But for VA's T4NG2, there are 15 STVOSBs and 15 large businesses. They're going to award one WOSB and 1 8A, but those will be mostly from the same 15 STVOSB companies. GSA Alliant 3, it's a $50 billion IT project. It is for large businesses only, so it's not for small businesses. But due to the way they have set it up and structured it, a lot of teaming is needed. So a lot of large businesses are looking for small businesses. So that's somewhere to look for partners and large business partners to work with them. The fourth one is DHS PACT 3. It's a $5.6 billion programs management, administration, clerical, and technical services. And it's for STV, four set-asides, STVOSB, WOSB, hub zones, and 8 companies. Specifically for them, $5.6 billion. So these are the major opportunities in 2023. Of course, there are others. I'm talking about self-scoring ones. There was one Evolve, which is now done. And actually, T4NG2, the second one, is out and is due on April 17th. GSA OASIS Plus is scheduled for March 30th to be issued, and they're going to allow a 90-day period for proposal submission. Alliant 3 is either fourth quarter of 2023 or first quarter of 2024. PAX 3 also in August or later on. So these are the dates for these 2023 bids. Okay, let's see now what is self-scoring. We're discussing self-scoring evaluation and everything. And there's a reason I've put these pictures on the previous one with all those equations. Self-scoring is not a lot about writing. In fact, it doesn't have any writing. So the traditional proposals that had a lot of writing, you have to write towards the technical volume, past performance volume, then you had management volume, things like that. This does not have any of that. It is a lot of analytics and document management. And due to that analytics part, I've brought our friend Einstein here because we do need some Einsteins in our organization to actually do that analytical work. And you will see as we go along why I'm saying this. So let's see the process. What's the process when the government and what does the government do and what does a contractor who wants to bid on a self-scoring proposal do? Let's start with the RFP stage from the government. In the RFP, the government spells out how they will score the contractor's experience and past performance. So that's the major part. If you're familiar with the standard RFPs, there's usually a section L and a section M, which explains how you're supposed to prepare your proposal. For these self-scoring proposals, sections L and M are essentially telling you how the government is going to score it and what they're going to look for you to prove that score is true, because you can always say, yes, for example, this is my score, but how are you going to prove it? We call that substantiation. And so essentially sections L and M of these self-scoring proposals cover this issue. First, it gives numbers to different factors on how you can actually we have a screen sharing is now paused. Can you see my screen?
I'm seeing self-scoring evaluation system. Is that what you're?
Yes, but I have a window popped up. Maybe that's nothing. Okay, no problem. So I was saying that the sections L and M spells out what the system for factors, scoring factors are, and how you're going to substantiate, how you're going to prove that those, it's called self-scoring, how those scores are really justified. So once that is done, the government issues that RFP, and then we jump to the contractor side. We'll come back to the evaluation stage under government. Let's look at the contractor side. The contractor usually goes through three processes. One is assessment stage. You assess yourself based on those scores that the government has set to see if you have the minimum qualifications. You do a gap analysis on experience and past performance to see if you're there or not. And if you're not, and if partnering is allowed, because partnering is sometimes allowed, sometimes not allowed based on the specific RFP you're going after. If partnering is allowed, you go and find those partners. So that's the assessment stage. Then you start preparing the proposal. In the proposal preparation, you reassess yourself, find out the self-scoring, fill out the self-scoring spreadsheet, which usually comes with these RFPs, and then you start substantiating your claims. In other words, putting different documents, and when I say documents, I mean contract documents, together, and we'll see samples of them, how that's done, to prove that you deserve the score that you have come up with. And then you submit. The government has created a portal called Symphony. They're using it, at least GSA is using it a lot. If you're submitting for other agencies, they might have their ways of sending by email, DVD, or whatever. But GSA is now using Symphony as the way to submit. And it's not a copy-paste system, no way. It usually takes a day, in fact, to actually upload your proposal to Symphony. So assume that you've done that. So we come back to the government side and go look at the evaluation stage. What the government is going to do, they're going to review the proposals for compliance. Is their, I call it their first line of defense, because they're going to get so many proposals. They're just going to put aside those proposals that are not compliant in form and format and in content, both. And they're going to remove those, the non-compliant proposals. After they do that, they rank, because each proposal has a number on it, a score. So they rank the remaining proposals based on the score, and then let's assume that we are talking about T4NG2 that I just mentioned. It's going to award 15 contracts for STVOSB. So the government receives 200 proposals from STVOSB companies. It reviews for compliance, puts aside, say, 30 of them. So it's now facing 170 proposals. Then it ranks them based on the score, and it's not going to look at the 130. It's going to look at only the top 15. So you can see suddenly the entire workload of the government is really reduced. They don't have to look at the 170. They just look at the top 15 and start checking substantiations. If a company has not properly substantiated, they put it aside or derank it, whatever, and bring in the 16th company. So this way, you know, the government doesn't have to really, you know, look at those 170 or 200 proposals that they receive. They just look at the top ranking proposals, and then they pick based on the, you know, the highest score and based on the number of awards that each company is supposed to provide. Each agency, excuse me. So here is a sample of, I said sections L and M that they will provide you with information. Here's a sample. This is just one table in OASIS, the previous OASIS SP evaluation system. So the first one says that projects reported under a NAICS code or PSC code that correlates directly to an OASIS SP NAICS code, and they have listed what the NAICS code are. Assume that it's 541330. So it says that if you have a project that has the NAICS code of 541330, you get 150 points. Since for OASIS SP, you were allowed to provide up to 5 contracts, so you can get a maximum of 750 points. So this is how the scoring is calculated. Let's go to the next one, relevant experience primary project value. It has 4 different sections, 4 different lines. First one says if your contract value is above 750 but below 2 million, you get 25 points. If the value is above 2 million but less than 4 million, you get 50 points. Between 4 and 6 million, 75 points, and between above 6 million, you get 100 points. And since there are 5 contracts that you can submit, the third max score column will tell you what is the maximum score that you can get on this basis. And it explains everything right like that. Now, I did mention analytics. I wanted to give you an example here. Let's look at the third section, which says relevant experience primary projects with performance integration of additional core disciplines. So if you, for example, have 6 core disciplines, you get 100 points. So you have a contract, you're faced with a dilemma. You have a contract that has 6 core disciplines, so you get 100 points, but it's only $2 million, so you get 25 points. So 100 plus 25, you get 125 out of these 2 for that contract. You have another contract that is $8 million, but it doesn't cover any core disciplines. It's less than 3, so it doesn't get any points for the core disciplines. Since it's $6 million, so you get 100 points. So you see that the small contract with 6 core disciplines gets you 125 points, but a $6 million or $8 million contract will get you only 100 points. So that's the juggling I talked about. You have to go through all the factors and then juggle the different contracts you or your partners have to see which 5, in this case, will give you the highest points. That's where the analytics comes. So it's like you have a formula with 20 or sometimes 30 different variables, and you have to resolve that formula. So you need a little bit of analytics. Let's move on. So what are the benefits and weaknesses of this system? Let's touch on that as well. What are the benefits to the government? The government doesn't have to evaluate hundreds of proposals, just the number to be awarded. So 15 awarded, they will evaluate only 15. Evaluation doesn't involve price evaluation, thus making it much easier. Most of these self-scoring proposals do not cover pricing, and if they do, you are supposed to provide the highest cost, usually for labor categories, the highest cost, nothing below that. The process is much less prone to protests because there's less subjective determination. You know, in the traditional way of writing proposals, I mean, the government would say, hey, we think that technically you can't do it. And companies would take them to the court saying, why do you say this? Because this is subjective. Here, there are numbers. You either have a contract that is over 6 million or you don't. It's much easier, so there's less possibility of protests as far as the government is concerned. What are the weaknesses as far as the government is concerned? Not many contracting officers understand this new system, so they shy away from it. This has been changing throughout these years, and now the government has actually instructed many contracting offices to use especially OASIS and OASIS Plus. So it's changing, but still many contracting officers are not happy with this or are not comfortable with it yet. They must carefully define the scoring system, otherwise the outcome won't be the pool of contractors the government wants. For example, initially when they started using these, they started putting a lot of emphasis on the past performance rating. So you would get a lot of points if your past performance was exceptional. They've realized that this way they're, removing a lot of companies because many agencies, per their standards, will not give anything above satisfactory. Some of the Navy agencies I know, that they're like that. You might be the best contractor for them, but they will still give you satisfactory. So this system was not proper, so they changed it. But this is one of the weaknesses. They have to really work on the scoring system. And then they need to be strong in terms of legal wording, so there are no protests and the system goes fast. Now, what are the benefits and weaknesses of the system to the contractors? First of all, benefits. Most contractors don't need to write, all contractors, in fact, you don't need to write elaborate technical responses that could be subjectively put aside because it's all numbers and points. So you don't need to be very, very proficient at proposal writing and hire, very expensive companies to write proposals for you. You can leverage on your past performance and past experience. So that's something that contractors can do and can more clearly estimate their probability of win, P-win. So from the beginning, sometimes you just don't know it until the government tells you, hey, you're not awarded or you're awarded. But here, since it's all numbers, you know if you have a good chance or not. Weaknesses. The burden of evaluation has been put on the contractor. So the government has done all that to put the burden on you. So you have to do a lot of contract management and document management to be able to actually prepare your proposal. It involves complex document management work. It needs strong analytical intuition to work around the many variables and scenarios, as I mentioned. And then compliance issues are a killer. I will show you some numbers on that. But compliance is really important. In the traditional way doing proposals, maybe you made a mistake here and there. you wouldn't get that much of a down score. But here, it could actually disqualify you completely. So compliance is really important. New process to many seasoned proposal managers. I mean, many proposal managers are superb proposal managers. They've been Shipley trained and others. It just doesn't work with this. They start to work like trying to prepare compliance matrices and things like that. Self-scoring proposals don't work like that. So it's a new system to many proposal managers. So if you're a CEO of a company and your proposal manager doesn't understand it, give them time, work with them. This is new to everyone. Startups and those without proper experience and past performance, they have no chance of success, unfortunately, because most of the scoring is based on your past experience and past performed contracts. So if you don't have many of them, you don't have a good chance. We'll see how you can actually compensate for that, because in many of these, they allow subcontracts and also commercial contracts, but this is essentially a weakness. Okay, so let's now, that's so overall of what I said, what proposal self-scoring proposals are. Now let's go into OASIS Plus. Let's dissect one of these major self-scoring bids and see how it works. So we're going to now discuss OASIS Plus and go through the numbering system. It might get a little bit tedious, but I think you will get an idea. You might not understand everything. It's fine. I mean, proposal managers usually have to read sections L and M multiple times to fully understand everything. So, but I want to give you an idea of what a self-scoring system is. And since OASIS Plus is coming out very soon, it's a very large bid opportunity and many companies are going for it. I thought that this might be the best to use as a sample. So the agency is GSA. It's a multi-award award IDIQ GWAC. When it's a GWAC, it means that it's not just for GSA. Multiple agencies can actually provide task orders. So once you're awarded, it's not just GSA that's going to award you task orders. It's multiple agencies. I think the previous OASIS, there were 22 different agencies involved, if I'm not mistaken. It has an open ceiling. The previous one had a $60 billion ceiling, but they reached that before the end of the period. So now this one, the new one, has an open ceiling. Number of awards, the good thing about this one, about OASIS Plus, is that there's no limit to the number of companies that can be awarded. And I'll tell you how that can be done. So it's not like T4NG2 that they're going to award only 15 STV OSB companies. No, unlimited if you have the proper scoring, and I'll get into that. The current draft RFP number is written. Right now, we are at second draft stage. They issued the first draft in November last year. Second draft was dropped on March 6th. And the full RFP is scheduled to be out March 30th. So not much time, a week. And then after that, we have a 90-day period to prepare the proposal and submit. For your information, as far as I know, almost all large businesses that are going after it and many of the small businesses have already started. So if you've not started on this and you want to go after it, you should as soon as possible. Many companies started in December or early January. Now, there are different tracks for this. There's the total small business. There's the 8A track. There's the hub zone track. There's the STV OSB track. There's the WOSB track, WOSB, and there's the unrestricted. Each of these are separate. You need to submit separate proposals for them. Okay, now, let's get to the domains. OASIS Plus covers 8 different domains. It's like 8 different contracts, in fact, because it covers management and advisory. All of these have different PSCs and NAICS codes, if you're familiar with those. So technical and engineering, research and development, intelligence services, enterprise solutions, which is only for large businesses, environmental, facilities, and logistics. There are 8 of these, or assume 7 of these, and there are 6 different tracks. So 6 times 7, you're faced with 56 different proposals that you need to submit if you wanted to go after all of them. Okay, so let's now look and discuss the scoring system. Let's go into the scoring system for OASIS. The maximum score that you can get for OASIS is 50 points. Some of these go into the thousands, some of these other RFPs sub-scoring, but this time, in fact, GSA has decided to keep it very low. So it's 50 is the maximum that you can get for all domains, for all those 7 domains for a small business. But there is a minimum qualification score of 36. So that's how they're going to select companies. If you can get a score above 36, you have a go. You're awarded. So there's no competition with other companies. That's the good thing about it. No competition here. There's going to be competition once you're awarded, and once they issue task orders, then that's where you compete with similar companies under similar domains. Say, for example, you're an 8A company and you submit an 8A offer proposal for management and advisory domain. Okay, if you're awarded, then the task orders, when they're put out, then there will be a task order that will be for management and advisory and only for 8A companies. And only you and similar to you companies will be able to participate. There might be a WASB track for management and advisory, but they cannot participate in 8A, and 8K companies cannot participate in WASB. So there are different ways that they have managed this. Now, what's the key player for those 36 points or 50 points? There's some the past performed contracts that you have. They call them qualifying projects, for short QPs. You need to provide 5 QPs, 5 qualifying projects, and you get, this changes from domain to domain. So it's between 35 to 45 points of those maximum 50, or it's something like 70% to 90% of the score, depends on those 5 contracts that you provide. So 5 QPs. So QPs are the key players. So just to give you an idea what the full 50 points are covered, how they're covered, there are 3 areas, 3 factors, 3 main factors. The 5 qualifying projects, they provide between 35 to 45 points, based on, it changes based on the domains. There's something else called Federal Experience Projects, FEPs. The FEPs cover 3 to 11. Most of them 3 to 5, just one of the domains is 11 points. So you can see compared to QPs, it's much less. And then systems, certifications, and clearances is much less, 0 to 6 points. And we'll go into detail for each of these. But I just wanted you to understand that there are 3 main areas. The QPs, which are the major, the main factor giving you the points. The FEPs, much smaller, and then the system certifications and clearances, again, much smaller. Let's look at them graphically. The blue ones you can see are the qualifying projects. The orange is Federal Experience, FEPs, and the gray is systems and certifications. And you can see how the qualifying projects compare with the other 2. So I've seen many companies that don't get any points under Federal Experience or systems and certifications, but they're still above 36. Because as you can see in most of these domains, the qualifying projects by themselves get you above 36, except for R&D. So you can see you can actually have good projects and get above 36, and you have a go. You're ready to be awarded. Okay, so from here on, I'm going to explain those 3 factors.
So the factors were qualifying projects, the blue one, federal experience projects, FEPs, the orange ones, and systems and certifications, the gray ones. So now we're going to discuss qualifying projects and how they are scored. So there's 6 sub-factors under QP scoring factors. So you have 5 contracts, you can provide 5 contracts, and each contract is then scored based on these 6 different sub-factors: relevance, scale, integrated experience, specialized functional experience, management and staffing, and past performance. So 5 contracts, each contract is scored based on these 6 factors. Let's see how. This is graphically showing the different factors. So relevance, which is the light blue one, the first one here, you can see that's the largest in most of these except for Intel. In Intel, management and staffing, the blue one, that is this one. The blue one, management and staffing here, gives you the highest score in Intel. But in everything else, this one, which is relevance, will get you the main score. But the others are also important, so you can't go just by one. You have to have all of them. Okay, so let's move on. Let's discuss each of those 6 different factors by itself separately. So relevance. Let's discuss relevance and see what it is about. You get 20 points because you have 5 contracts, and each contract gets 4 points if you can prove that it covers relevance. 5 times 4 is 20, except for Intel, which is 2 points. 5 times 2 is 10. So what are these? How does it work? Up to 5 contracts can be used, and these contracts can be standalone contracts. They can be task orders. They can be task orders under multiple award IDIQs, under multiple or single award IDIQs. Same thing for BPAs. They can be FSS contracts or BOAs. They can also be federal prime, federal subcontractor, or commercial projects. So if your company has been doing subcontract work all these years, no problem. You can use the same contracts. But there are other requirements also. The requirement for the annual value, and you'll see that I have highlighted, capitalized annual. You can see here, annual value, which is this row. There are different numbers for different domains. For T&E, technical engineering, management and advisory is $500,000. So the contract must have an annual value of $500,000. So I'll give you some examples how that works. Say it's a $600,000 contract for 1 year. It's a $1.2 million contract for 2 years. When you divide it by 2, it's 600. If it's a, say, $2 million contract, but for 5 years, divide 2 million by 5, you get 400,000. So it's below that threshold. You can't use that. So annual value is very important. Now, there are 2 ways to calculate it, because sometimes the contract is finished, done, or it's ongoing. So what numbers do I use? If it's an ongoing contract, then you just look at the contract document. If it says it's a 5-year contract, and yes, the option years count too. So it's a 5-year 1 year, base and 4 option years. Total value will not exceed $12 million. So that's the contract value, $12 million, and you divide it by 5 years. Even though you're in the first year, though you're in the second year, even though you haven't been paid anything yet, doesn't matter. What the contract says, that's it. This is for ongoing projects. If it's a finished project, okay, for finished projects, you go and see how much you were paid and how long did the contract actually last. Sometimes it was finished earlier. In most times it was delayed for some reason. So you actually take the actual duration of the contract plus the actual amount that was, the government calls it obligated, that was paid to you. So that's if it's a completed project, but if it's an ongoing one, what the contract document says, that's it. So this is how you calculate the annual value, and it's important. If it's less than that, you can use it, but you will not get enough points. So there's no reason in using less than annual value projects. So that's the value. The other requirement is the age of the contract. If it's an ongoing project, you must have at least 6 months of performance. So you can't use a contract that you got 2 months ago. Essentially, you can use most of your contracts that were started during 2022, perhaps except the last 3 months or so. So 6 months of completed performance. Now it might be that the project was finished. It's a finished project, completed project. It doesn't matter when it started, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but it must have been finished, completed within the last 5 years. So 5 years is the limit of completion date, not the start date, completion date. And how do they calculate it? From the date of final RFP. The final RFP isn't issued. It's probably being issued on March 30th. So 5 years behind from there. And then lastly, the requirement is you must have an average past performance rating, CPARs or others, of above satisfactory for each contract. And there is a catch here. It says average and above satisfactory. So if it's satisfactory all along, it's not acceptable. It has to be above satisfactory. But because it says average, it means that if you look at a CPAR document has sub rating forms. For example, they rate you separately for scheduling. They rate you separately for management. They rate you separately for different things. There are usually 5 or 6 different topics that they rate you. The average of those must be above satisfactory. Not, you might have, one of them might be, satisfactory or even less, but 2 of them might be very good or excellent or exceptional, as they call it. So, but you have to see what the average is. There's a way of changing these into numbers, creating an average. And if the average is above satisfactory, you're good to go. So these are the requirements for relevance, and you get 4 points per contract if you can prove relevance, except for Intel, which you get 2 points. Okay, let's move along to the next factor. Next factor is scale. They want to know how good you are at managing larger projects. Now, large projects has 2 meanings. One is the value, and 2 is the number of FTEs, full-time employees. So you get, let's look at, for example, T&E, technical and engineering domain. You get 1 point for, look at row first credit. You get 1 point if the value of your contract is above 1 million, again, annually, or you have used 5 or more FTEs. So either of these will get you 1 point. Now, look at the second credit row. If the value of the contract is over 4 million, or you use more than 20 points, 20 FTEs, you get another point. So the total is 2 points under scale for each contract. So for each contract, you can get a maximum of 2 points, because if the value of the contract is, say, $10 million annually, well, you get both points. Or you had 20 FTEs, 25 FTEs, for example, in a contract. Maybe the contract is only $600,000, but you had 20 FTEs. In that case, you had more than 5 FTEs, so you get 1 point. You had more than 20 FTEs, so you get another point, 2 points. So this is how scale is calculated, and you can see that there are different numbers for different domains, but they're similar, more or less. Intel is a little bit different. Under R&D, they don't look at FTEs, just the value of the contract. But essentially, the system works like this. Let's move on to the next factor. Third factor is called integrated experience. Integrated experience covers two areas: labor categories and functional areas. Labor categories is how many labor categories you use, and did you have SMEs, did you have clerks, did you have engineers, what? If you can prove that you had 5 or more labor categories, you get 1 point. If you can prove that you had 3 or more functional areas, and functional areas here means domains. You might be going after technical and engineering, but somewhere in your statement of work, there's some sort of an R&D, research and development. There is some sort of an cybersecurity issue, or even facilities or logistics. So if you can prove from the statement of work that you did a tiny little bit of another domain, if it's 3 or more, you get a point there as well. So here, 2 points you can get for these, each of these. And one note, you can see that some of them, like in R&D doesn't have this at all, but Intel and facility have, and logistics have 4, and environmental has 3. Now, what if I have 5 contracts and all of them have more than 5 categories, and all of them have cover 3 or more domains? So I get 2 points for each contract. 5 times 2 is 10, but the points are 5, 4, or 3. What happens? Well, that's the thing. Even if all 5 contracts will get you the highest score, the maximum you can get out of this factor for some of these is 5, for the rest are 4 or 3. So that point factor, the first row points, that covers or is the limiting factor of how many points you can get under experience, integrated experience. This is the same for the previous one and the others that we will cover. For facilities, environmental, and logistics, the 3 new domains that have been added to OASIS, they have also added a new factor called specialized functional experience. To them, it's important, for example, under facilities, if a contract has 3 or more different types of job, you get points there. For example, if you could look at it, it has under facilities, it has building management services, electrical maintenance, HVAC maintenance, janitorial, landscaping, and plumbing. So say you have a contract that covers 3 of these: electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. You get 1 credit for it. So they want to see contractors who did multiple different types of facility work. The same stands for environmental. If you did hazmat or environmental permitting and things like that. So you get a point if your contract covers any of the items that are listed here. And for logistics, it's a different type of experience they're looking for. If you did surge capability, so your contract covered some sort of a surge, and the surge needs to have been requested by the government, not a surge that is written in the statement of work, because many times in logistics contracts, there is a clause in the statement of work saying that you must be able to respond to surge situations. They don't mean that. They mean a case in which the government actually requested a surge capability, and the surge should be less than 45 days, more than 10% of level of effort increase. You get a point there. Or if you can show that you have experience using SPOT or SOFA or other types of contracts. For example, SOFA are those contracts that the US government signs with other governments, like in Iraq, they had a SOFA agreement. So they want to know if you provided logistics under contracts that had a SOFA clause in it, something like that. So this is specialized functional experience, 5 points for facilities, 6 for environmental, and 4 for logistics. These are the limiting factors, obviously. So even if you can prove, for example, on the logistics that all 5 contracts did have surge and did have SOFA or spot, you still can't get over 4 points. Okay, let's go to next factor. It's management and staffing. Under management and staffing, you can see that the range of the points that you can get is very different. I mean, under T&E, technical engineering, management and advisory, in R&D is 7 or 6, but Intel suddenly gives you 20 points. Facilities is 2, environmental 5, and logistics 5. They're essentially based on 3 factors: surge capability, again, the same surge that we discussed, using 3 or more subcontractors. So if you had 3 or more subcontractors in a contract, you get a point. Or you had 5 or more personnel with clearance. I mean, the statement of work must request that clearance, not, you know, just the fact that, hey, I had 5 personnel and by the way, they had clearance. No, the statement of work must have requested that 5 or more of the personnel have clearance. And it doesn't matter what type of clearance, as far as it's secret, top secret, or Q. Department of Energy uses Q system. So those are acceptable and you get a point there. Intel is a little bit different. I'll show you why. Not only do they give you points in terms of first-year subcontractors and surge, but they also give you 3 points per contract, 3 times 5, 15, if your personnel had clearances. So it has much more weight in Intel for personnel that had clearance. So 15 points there and 5 points from subcontractors and surge, a total of 20. And the others work like this too. So this is the way that these management and staffing points work. Under the same title, management and staffing, facilities has a special case for surge situations, not surge situations, urgent situations, the type of work. They have 3 types of work explained: urgent work request, emergency work request, and emergency callback. If you can prove that your contract had any of these, you get a point. And thus, there are maximum of 5 points that you can get here under management and staffing under facilities. This is just for facilities, obviously. So, and it's not for the other domains. And lastly, but not least, is past performance. You get 3 points if all 5 contracts that you have are above satisfactory. You get 2 points if 4 contracts are above satisfactory. You get 1 point, I'm talking overall, 1 point overall under this past performance if 3 contracts are above satisfactory. If you have less than 3 contracts with above satisfactory rating, you don't get any points here. So 3 is the number. So we're done here. Let's go back, and so you can take a look at it again. I just explained you this comparison of the QP's main factors. And we saw that relevance was the most important one, except for Intel. And Intel got 20 points for management and advisory here. And the other ones are essentially very close to each other in terms of numbers, except for past performance, which is just 3 points overall for all of them. But you can see how it's spread between these different sub-factors for QPs. So we are done with QPs, and we want to go into the second one, which was called Federal Experience Projects. It had much less, you can see these orange one is the Federal Experience Projects. It gives you much less points in terms of scoring compared to qualifying projects, but you still need to understand how it works. So let's look at it first in terms of a graphical view. The orange is shows you if you can prove you had task orders under multiple award IDIQs or multiple award BPAs, you get 4 points in most cases, or 3 points. Then you have federal agencies. If you can prove that you had 3 or more federal agencies contracts for them, you get 1 point. And for R&D, you can see that there are other factors involved: cost reimbursement and advanced R&D. I'm going to explain all of them, but you can see the value of the federal experience projects. They call FEPs. So the first one is multiple award IDIQ participation. 4 of these domains get 4 points, and 3 domains get 3 points. So T&E, M&A, R&D, and facilities get 4 points, and then Intel, environmental, and logistics get 3 points. When I say 4 points, it means that if you have 4 task orders that were awarded to you under multiple award IDIQs, and the emphasis is on multiple award. So if you had single award IDIQ and then you had task orders on it, that doesn't count. So multiple award IDIQs or multiple award BPAs, if you had 4 task orders awarded, you get the score. If you have 3 task orders, you get 3 points. 2 task orders, you get 2 points. They don't have to be under the same multiple award IDIQ. Maybe you have 4 IDIQs, each of them 1 task order. That's good to go. The important thing is that they have to be multiple award. And when they say multiple award, you have to prove that at least 2 companies, yourself and another company, submitted bids for that task order, for the solicitation of that task order. There are also other requirements, the same requirements as far as what type of contracts were allowed for QPs work here too. So you can have multiple award IDIQ, single award IDIQ, excuse me, only multiple award IDIQs and multiple award BPAs. However, the annual value has been lowered to 250K. So it doesn't have to be 500K in most cases in QPs. Here, it can be 250K. But in terms of the age, it's the same. So 6 months if it's ongoing, if it's completed within, it must have been completed within the last 5 years. Now, important factor here, you cannot use subcontracts. You cannot use non-federal experience. So FEPs are different from QPs. In QPs, you could use your subcontracts, you could use your commercial contracts and get those points. Here, in FEPs, you can only use federal prime contracts. That's the important factor to remember. But the value is 250. Now, maybe one of your QPs was a task order under a multiple award IDIQ. You can use it here, no problem. But you don't have to use those same contracts that you used in QPs. You can bring in other contracts, no problem. That's about it under multiple award participation. You get 1 extra point if you can show that your contracts, you have 3 contracts or more for 3 different agencies. And again, these contracts can be completely different from the QPs, can be completely different from those task orders in the previous subfactor. These are 3 different contracts maybe, or they could be the same from the previous ones. But they must cover 3 different federal agencies. So local and state doesn't count, federal agencies. But the good thing is that the value can be over 250 annual value and not 500K as in most cases for QPs. So here again, 250 works. 6 months of performance if it's ongoing, or if it's completed, last 5 years. If you're familiar with FPDS, it's a government website, fpds.gov, produces reports on contracts. There is a field there called government funding agency ID to prove, there's also a funding agency name to prove that you perform for different agencies. You just have to cite from FPDS report that you had 3 different funding agencies. And lastly, the project must have been funded. It means that if you receive the BPA or even an IDIQ, but you receive no task orders under it, you can't use that here for proving that you covered 3 different agencies. If you're using BPAs or task orders, you have to use orders. For BPAs and IDIQs, you have to use orders and task orders over 250,000 annually. So that's federal agencies. Now for technical and engineering, for research and development, R&D, there are 2 other factors involved. You get 2 points if you can bring in or show 2 contracts that were of the type cost reimbursement. It's a special type of contract that the government provides. If you're not familiar with it, most contracts are firm fixed price, but there are also cost reimbursement type contracts. And so it's usually written on the first page. So if you can prove that, then you get 2 points. This is only for R&D projects. There's also 4 points for advanced R&D, and advanced R&D covers 3 areas. R&D effort performed through the SB or STTR programs, phase 2 or phase 3. Applied research or experimental development as demonstrated by the PSC code. So if the PSC of the contract starts with an A, and in the 4th position of the PSC there's a 2 or a 3, that's considered a applied research or experimental exploratory advanced development contract, and you get a point for it. Or the 3rd type is project with an assessed technology readiness level, TRL they call it, of 3 or higher. So if you did an R&D with a TRL of 3 or higher, again you get a point for it. The same requirements stand here. It has to be a federal prime contract. Value must be over 250 annually, and 6 months of performance or 5 years completion duration. So that completes our 2nd major factor, which was the federal experience projects, FEPS. Let's go to the 3rd one, which is called comparison of systems, clearances, and certifications factors. So you see facilities doesn't have any, and the rest of them are mostly 4. You can see environmental is 3, Intel is 6. So it's a not very important factor. It covers a number of things. Your accounting system, you get 2 points for accounting system, the blue one. And when I say accounting system, it doesn't mean that if you have an, for example, a software that does the accounting system, like QuickBooks or something like that, they're going to give you, no. The government must have approved your accounting system. So they must have audited your accounting system and provided you with a letter saying that your accounting system is approved or audited. That is acceptable. Usually that's done by DCMA or DCAA, the agencies, government agencies. Clearances. If your company has a secret or top secret FCL, facility clearance, you get points. And finally, if you have CMMI level 2 or above, or a number of different types of ISO certifications, you get 1 point there as well. So these are called systems, clearances, and certifications. And together, these 3 main factors, the QPs, the FEPs, and these systems, clearance, and certifications, they create those 50 points. And this is how the scoring system for OASIS Plus works. We don't have time to go over the scoring system for example, T4NG2 or for Alliant 3, but they work along the same lines. The numbers are completely different. The requirements are different. You have to read the sections L and A fully to understand the scoring, but the essence is the same. So once you get the grip of one of these, you can actually work on the others as well. And hopefully we will work with the Virginia PTAC and hold more detailed webinars on on the others as well. But the crux of the working with these self-scoring is this scoring system, and once you get to know one, you can usually work with the others as well. Let's move on. Okay, now I have assessed myself. I know that I have a say OASIS Plus out of 50, I have 42 points, so I'm good. And it's a good point I should mention. You shouldn't go for just the threshold, the 36. That's not safe. We'll see why. You should always hit for 40, 41, 4 or 5 points above the threshold. You might say, hey, that's what my contracts will bring me. What can I do? That's where partnering comes in. The reason I'm saying that you should go above is that you need some cushioning, we call it, cushioning points, because at the end of the day, you submit your proposal and the reviewer might not like this, not like that. This substantiation is not correct, that thing is incorrect, and you start losing points. You don't want to go below 36. So you need a few cushion points just in case, God forbid, you didn't do the compliance properly. So that was one missing factor I should have mentioned. Let's go into proposal preparation. So I mentioned that self-scoring proposals do not have writing involved. So what is the proposal then? Okay, the first part is actually going through those numbers and assessing yourself. The second part is actually preparing the proposal. But what is that proposal? Okay, so we're going to see what that proposal is. Now, the proposal in the simplest way is just contract documents that prove you have scored yourself properly. And I mean contract documents, so you can't write something explanation and put that as a document. A contract document is an award document, is a statement of work, is a monthly report to the contracting office, or amendments, notes from the contracting office to you, things like that. So those are considered contract documents, and you need to use those to substantiate, to prove your points. So essentially, you need to substantiate all your claimed score. So it's not that some of them you need to substantiate and the rest, they know it, they will do it themselves. Nothing like that. I did another webinar for on OASIS, and we have rules in our company. Rule number 1 is you face a robot. That's rule number 1 for us. You face a robot, he's going to review your proposal. That robot is not going to give you numbers, points for anything that you have not directed that robot to. So I'm not insulting in any way the government people. They're really hardworking people. But I'm talking about you when you're preparing your proposal. You really need to direct the person to the proper location that prove your score. So that all that I have capitalized is important. All the score points must be substantiated. You must first carefully read the RFP and understand how you're supposed to get the score, obviously, but also how you're supposed to substantiate. For example, we discussed relevance, which was how do you provide relevance? Relevance was that for R&D, obviously, you have to show some sort of a NAICS code or PSC code, or from a writing from the statement of work. Also, you have to show the value of the contract, the annual value of the contract is above a number. Also, you have to show that it was finished within the last 5 years or is ongoing. Also, you have to show that the self-score, the CPARS is above satisfactory. So all of those points you must understand and know that you have to substantiate. Next point, all documents on experience and past performance must be government documents, i.e. documents issued by the government or issued by the contractor, but in the possession of the government, like monthly status reports. All critical documents, such as award documents or amendments, must be signed by the government official or commercial client in some cases. It's important when you start working on your documents, you realize that at that date when you got the government the contract, you were so happy you didn't look that the government hadn't signed it actually. Just had, you know, they just sent it to you, but it doesn't have a signature. Now you want to use it, it's not legal. It has to have a signature on it. So look for that. Substantiation is through providing the needed document with proper format and naming convention. So the documents that you provide must be named properly, proper format, highlighting and putting sticky notes next to each proof point. So you want to show that the NAICS code is relevant, you highlight it, you put a sticky note next to it on the PDF. You want to show that the value of the contract was above 500K, for example, annually. You highlight the total value of the contract, you highlight the duration, period of performance, and you put a sticky note and explain, because the duration was 689 days and the value of the contract was 3 million whatever, so the annual value is above 500K. So you have to explain it. So the Achilles heel here is compliance, and I'll show you why. It's really important. In a minute, I'll show you. This is an example of how you actually annotate a Word document. You see here, I'll put this arrow here. You have highlighted the NAICS code, and there is a sticky note here. Sometimes people put the sticky note right next to where they have highlighted. Per our experience, it's better to put them here because the contracting officer, or I mean the reviewer, is much easier for them to look at the left-hand side and not miss any of these. These are small points that you have to consider. You don't want them to miss anything. Here is the contract number, date of award. Here's your name. Sometimes people think that they shouldn't actually highlight their name. Yes, you have to prove that the contract was in your name. Who says that the contract wasn't in somebody else's name? So you have to prove that the contract was in your name, and you highlight it and you put an annotation. And there's a note here that it says this is the prime contract. Or it might be a contract that your partner is bringing because it's allowed, for example, on OASIS. You put an annotation here saying this is a contract for blah, blah company who is a partner, is a subcontractor under this OASIS submission. So you annotate like this. Move on. This is another example of annotation. This is from the previous OASIS, excuse me, for I think it was for T4NG or HCAS, one of those. But sometimes you don't have the NAICS code for proof that your contract is relevant, but you know from the statement of work that is relevant. But for some reason, the contracting officer, when they put in the NAICS code or the PSC code, they didn't put the proper NAICS code. If you can prove from the statement of work that it was relevant, this is how you do it. So you highlighted that part of the statement of work, and you put a sticky note here explaining why this is relevant to that domain. For example, if it's OASIS Plus, or that pool if it was the previous OASIS. So this is how it's done when you're looking on the proving substantiation from the statement of work instead of, for example, NAICS code. You might use the statement of work where it actually provides, if you remember, you could get points if you could prove that your contract covered multiple domains. Okay, this is the way to do it. You highlight those different domains and you put a sticky note next to it saying this shows that there's domain technical and engineering, this shows domain R&D, and this shows domain facilities. So I have 3 different domains and I get the point. So this is how it works. There's usually a volume structure. If it's using Symphony, if it's GSA, there's no volume structure because you upload to Symphony. But other agencies use a volume structure, and you separate different documents into different volumes, and then you put it on a DVD or email it. The volume structure usually, volume 1 is eligibility. They sometimes call it administrative. So SF33 or the administrative forms, or if you are partnering with different companies, letters of partnership and things like that go there, or JVs, they all go there. Volume 2 is responsibility, for example. Volume 3 experience, volume 4 past performance. Now these might change, but these are essentially those volumes that contain the documents that prove your points. Volumes 2, 3, 4, 5 sometimes. 5 is systems, clearances, and accreditations. And then volume 6 is price. Sometimes there is no volume 6 price. In most cases recently, the GSA at least is not going for getting prices at IDIQ level. They want to get prices at task order level. And even if it's if they are getting prices, it's usually a list of different pricing for labor categories. That's all. Okay, let's discuss partnering also a little bit, because it's an important issue. Each bid, each solicitation has its own rules for partnering. So some of them do allow it, like OASIS Plus, Alliant 3, T4 and G2, they do allow JVs, they allow prime sub relationships. Some of them only allow JVs, not prime subs. For example, HCATS did not allow prime subs, they allow JVs. And some don't even allow partnerships to form new partnerships unless it was an established old JV. This is like, for example, Astro. So you have to read from the statement of work and find out, from the solicitation and find out what the value is, if it is allowed or not. If it is allowed, it's a must. And I say it's a must because at the end of the day, you win because of your score. Doesn't matter what you do to get that score up. If you have to, and when I say if you have to, I mean if you can come by the logistics, because obviously, creating a JV or bringing in subs under a prime has a lot of logistics. But not considering that, the more you can bring it along and increase your score and maximize your score, the better. Especially in solicitations where there is no threshold, or they haven't said what the score will be. For example, let's look for T4 and G2. Only 15 companies, STV, OSP companies can be awarded. So they're going to look for the maximum, for the 15 that have the maximum score. So you want to be there. How can you do it? Your company will get a specific number, score. To increase it, you have to bring in those partners and use their contracts, use their points. And this way you can increase your score. So it's really a must. Under OASIS Plus, it works another way, because OASIS Plus, as we went through it, if you have 36 points, you're good to go. You don't have to, do anything more. Now, considering that cushion point issue that I said, assume 40 points. If you have 40 points and above, you don't need partners. If you are less than 40 points, bring in a partner by all means. You just want to get your points above 40. This way, you want to make sure that you are awarded. Okay, now last thing, there is a free online partnering portal, and I've put a link there, partneringhub@gdicwins.com. It's free, you register there, and then you can communicate with anybody else who's registered there. And it covers OASIS Plus, Alliant 3, and T4 and G2. So any company who's looking for a partner, both they are a prime, they want to have subs, or vice versa, you can always go to this. It's completely free. You can go there and find partners there. You can communicate with them, call them, and it sends emails to partners. Now let's get to the last part of the technical part, experience sharing. I myself have done around 150 projects. Our company has done 180 projects. So we have a lot of projects, and I want to provide that as much as I can during this webinar. So what can go wrong with your proposal? And these are general ideas that you can use towards any self-scoring proposal. Compliance, compliance, and compliance. That's really a killer. If you make any mistakes in compliance, and when I say compliance, it's from small factors like name of your document, the way you substantiate, all the way to content compliance, not reading the requirements properly, so your proposal is not compliant. Either way is the killer. It's the first line of defense for the government. So they're going to put you aside if you're compliance, if you're not compliant. And the wording of most of these agencies' RFPs allows them to do that. It doesn't say that it will, deduct points from you. Most of the time, the wording allows them to actually put aside your proposal if it is not compliant. It doesn't say how much non-compliant. It just says if it's not compliant, we can actually remove you from the race. So it's really important. Let me, before proceeding, show you this slide. I was able to get scores for HCATS, which was bidded a few years ago. You can see both small business companies and large business submissions. The orange ones are the submissions that were eliminated due to non-compliance. The green ones were the ones that were awarded. Look at small business. A little bit less than 75% of the companies who submitted proposals were eliminated because they were non-compliant. And large businesses didn't work that much better. Nearly 50% were eliminated. So you can see compliance is really an important issue that you should pay its price, and I will go into that in a minute. Misunderstanding the requirements is the next one, obvious. Not maximizing your score. Yeah, I mean, you don't read the RFP properly, and you really deserve a point, but you just don't realize it. So you don't maximize your score. Not substantiating your score properly. You really deserve the score, but you do not provide the proper documentation and you do not substantiate it, so you don't get it. Stretching the scores too far, I've seen that unfortunately too, and I've seen disqualification for that as well. Companies who have come back to us and said that we did this and that, and then I told them, why did you do that? They said, we thought maybe we could get away with it. So claiming a score when you don't have it and you can't really substantiate it, again, the wording in many of these RFPs allows the government to disqualify you, so don't do that. Not submitting the proposal correctly. Again, I've seen companies do that. That's why we, at least when we do it, we always do an audit after submission, just to make sure that all documents were submitted. I know a large business, one of the top 10 government contractors, defense contractors, we did a proposal for them, and the financial part, that one, it was a OASIS Plus. The financial part had to be submitted. Financial forms actually had to be submitted, and they said that per their regulations, they cannot give them to us. They have to submit them themselves, and we're not allowed to look and audit it. We said, okay, no problem. And the 2 weeks, no, not 2 weeks, about 2 months afterwards, the government came back and said, everything is okay, except your financials. You've submitted the wrong documents. And we just didn't know what to do. Fortunately, they were able to work with the government, that they got awarded. But I mean, these types of mistakes are made. So really make sure that when you submit your proposal, you submit it properly. Let's see, where were we? Okay. Another topic, workload split. Just to give you an idea how much time you really need to put into preparing your final proposal. We divide the proposal phases into 4. We call them contract selection, proposal preparation, compliance reviews, and uploading to Symphony. Uploading to Symphony also does have a compliance audit at the end, but we haven't written that. Now, contract selection is going through the contracts, juggling them, coming up with the best contracts, best QPs, for example, if you're going for OASIS Plus, and also your shortages. Maybe you have to have 5 contracts, you only have 4, or you have 3. Finding the partners who have the best contracts they can bring to the table. So contract selection usually takes 50% of the time of the preparation until you're finally settled. You know that your score is, say, 40 for OASIS, and you're sure you have your agreements with your partners and everything is ready to go to next phase. Next phase is proposal preparation. Usually 25% of the time is taken there. Here is that substantiation that I showed. So you take those contract documents, you highlight, substantiate, annotate, and go on like that. And then 20% of the time goes into compliance reviews. We do at least 2 rounds, and we have forms for it. I'll show you in a minute. You can prepare your own forms if you want, if you're doing it in-house, to make sure that you're compliant. It's really important. I think hopefully I have shown you what can happen if you don't do that compliance reviews, in fact. And then you upload to Symphony, which takes about, usually for Symphony takes 1 or 2 days submission and 1 or 2 days to go through everything and making sure that audit works and everything is in place. So 3 or 4 days at least. It's not a copy-paste system for Symphony. If you're doing it for another agency and you're putting it on DVD or email, maybe it's less time. But for Symphony, for GSA, which is using Symphony more and more, it takes more time. Some win strategy suggestions. Identify the driving score factor. That will be your first criterion for choosing projects. Most of the time, it's past performed projects. Let's go back to the OASIS Plus. We saw that there were 3 main factors in it. QPs, which covered between 70 to 90% of the points, and then FEPs, and then systems, certifications, and clearances. So it's really important when you're going after an RFP, a self-scoring RFP, first find out what is the main driving score factor. For OASIS Plus, it's the QP, so you should concentrate on QP. Maybe you don't get any points on FEP and the 3rd one, but you can get above 36 just by the QP. So it's really important to identify that driving factor. If allowed to partner, make a determination and choose your partners soon, with emphasis on soon. They are hard to find if you look for them towards the end. Right now, many of the companies have already selected their partners, selected their primes. So if you're looking for a sub, it might get harder and harder as we go along, especially after, for example, after OASIS drops at March 30th, it's going to get harder. Maximize your score. Use a per contract scoring system to see what your score looks like. I'll show that to you in a minute. We have developed one in-house for the proposals that we prepare for our clients. You should prepare one for yourself in-house, in that you should not try to juggle the contracts at the beginning to find out which 5 are the best. First, score each contract separately by itself, then compare them. So there's a system to that. I'll show that to you in a minute. Maximize the use of your commercial projects if you have to. So many of these self-scoring proposals, including OASIS Plus, allow you to use commercial contracts that you have. So if you can use that, do so. There's no differentiation. I mean, it's not that the government will give another company that has provided prime federal contracts award and not to you. at the end of the day, the points count. So if you can get points from bringing in commercial projects, by all means do. Check compliance, think compliance, and eat compliance. That's the motto for WIN strategy. And then outsource if you've not done this before to anyone. I mean, the problem is that, as I said, many companies are not familiar with it. If you are familiar with it and you're doing it in-house, then get it reviewed by somebody else. Somebody who is not in your organization. Maybe you are affiliated to another organization. Okay, get it reviewed by them, but somebody outside your organization should actually review it. These are hard-earned experiences, so it's not really anything towards sale. As I said, do it within your larger organization, even with an affiliated company, but get it reviewed by somebody else. Okay, moving on. This is a HCAT's score assessment checklist. The point here, this checklist that we created, and we suggest that for each self-scoring proposal that you're going after, you should create one for yourself. This allows us to view each contract by itself and see what points it brings. Let me show you what is the main column. The total score, this column, total score, is the main score. It's automatically calculated. It's well, maybe you do it by hand. Ours does it, automatically by formulas in Excel. So you can see that for the first, and each row is a contract. So row 1 is one contract, and it gets 37.25 points. Row 2 is the second contract. It gets 35.50. And this way I can, get different points for each of my contracts. And when I have to pick 5, I know which 5 to pick, because separately and independently I have scored them. This way helps us actually, instead of juggling score by score and factor by factor, we juggle contracts after we have scored them separately, and this way we know which contracts to use. This form also helped us in other ways as well. You might also want to do it. In terms of the annual revenue, which is automatically calculated based on the total amount and the performance period. It calculates if it's above a certain value, it becomes red. So I know that this contract cannot be used. For example, for HCAS, the value was much less because it's red. So this way, it tells me that I cannot use it because the annual value is below a certain amount. We did this also for NAICS code and for other things. So you can always make it automatically shown if a contract is not suitable. And this way you can move quickly within your contracts and your partners' contracts, obviously. Okay, moving on. I wanted to show you another form also. This is for OASIS Plus that we have created. For example, here, this client had 9 contracts. We have automated it more here. The formulas automatically tell us, even though they give the points here, so I can see from the graph in this area. This is the graph area. I can see which contracts give me the higher points, but it automatically puts the green color for those contracts. So these contracts are in columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 till 9. It has room for 10. And to the left, it's you probably cannot see it, but it's the scoring factor. So this one is maximum number of credits for relevance, which is 20. The client has gotten full 20. Scale is 6. The client has gotten 3, and this goes on to the end. The total score out of 50 is 39. So this client has 39. From 36, it is 3+. So 3 contracts, 3 points above the minimum threshold. We actually told them that they should actually find a partner if possible. You can see from this point here, there's 1 point, for example, here for multiple agencies, they don't claim it. So if they can bring in a partner that covers multiple agencies, they can get 1 point here. Things like that. So this is how it helps scoring different contracts. And you should create something for yourself for each RFP. Now, this one is for substantiation. This is for compliance. You want to make sure that you are compliant. This is taken from OASIS, the previous OASIS. What we did, and again, you have to create something in-house for yourself that suits you and the RFP that you're going after. We created this for each contract. For each contract, we look for these on the contract document. So the reviewer, which is usually, in our case, always, for you, it should be usually somebody else. So the reviewer, the one who is doing the compliance, we have a separate quality control department that does it. In your case, if you're doing it in-house, always use somebody else. You don't want the proposal manager to do the same thing. He should bring in help of other people to do the compliance checks, or even give it to another organization to do it within your larger organization. So let me look at this one, for example. I'm looking at this area here, and I erase it so you can see. So it says company name on award document, okay. So the reviewer went, looked at the award document, made sure visually that the company name is there, and put an okay here. Signed award document in red, it says award document isn't signed. So we know that this document is not signed, and that's why this contract is a row, has an orange color under review number 1. So the first time it was reviewed, it received an orange because there's a problem in it. Prime, okay. Contract value, okay. So when it says okay, it means that it was highlighted and annotated. POP, period of performance, okay. Highlighted and annotated. Core disciplines for OASIS, it was required. Locations, subcontractors not available. Ancillary support, and so on. So you can see that this is a checklist that we prepared, and you should create something for yourself per contract award for each contract to make sure that substantiation is done properly, and then tick. So for example, we had review number 1 here, review number 2, review number 2, signed, it means that finally signed by our organization, ready to submit it. Final means that after submission, it was checked again and it was okay. So these are the different levels that we do. You might have your own internal system, but you should always have a checklist like this to ensure proper substantiation. I want to move faster so we have enough time for questions, at least 15 minutes. Okay, services we provide. I just wanted very quickly to cover the services our company does. I will not go into details about our past experience. It's written here. So if you download the slides, it's written. You can see the experience we've had on OASIS. These are the wins that we've had: 12 large, 41 small business, the previous OASIS. Astro, 18 large businesses, 29 small businesses. Alliant 2, HCAS, and so on. So these are some of the ones that we have done. Moving forward, these are some of the contracts that our company has done. Some of them have been small businesses set aside, and some large, some self-scoring, and some the traditional ways. Finally, the types of services we provide. In terms of proposal development, we have eligibility score assessment. Remember that I said first thing you should do for self-scoring proposals is to make sure you're eligible, and you score you assess your score. So that's the first phase. We do it for our clients. Then we have full proposal development. We do reviews, and for compliant self-scoring proposals, we have staff augmentation. Usually this is required for larger businesses when they want, a writer or proposal manager, a capture manager, whatever. We do capture management, two types: dedicated capture management for larger businesses and sourcing and qualification for smaller businesses. We have support services such as competitive intelligence, black hat exercises, and price to win. And we provide training free like this one, or paid, especially for specific companies. They want something special, proposal development and capture management. So this is the services that we provide. You can also have our emails and telephone numbers for myself and my colleague in case you wanted to communicate with us. So we have arrived at the Q&A, and I stop here and see what the questions might be.
Yes, we do have several questions. We'll start further back. For our 8A, we don't have past performance. We are planning, I'm guessing they're saying they're planning to have a JV. Can we form a company as a LLC or LP?
Okay, by yourself, obviously, as you said, you don't have any past experience. So for these projects specifically, let's talk about OASIS Plus, you cannot participate. You have two choices. Either create a JV. Now, to get an 8A JV, because you want an 8A JV, otherwise, if you create a normal JV, you can register it with SBA, but it won't be an register it with SAM, but it won't be an 8A JV, it will be a normal JV. But if you want a 8A JV, you have to register it with SBA. So you have to go through the process of SBA registration, which takes a while. I'm not sure, to be honest, if you start today, you will have it in time. If OASIS Plus is going to drop in by March 30th, you have 90 days from then on. If you think you can get it, and you have to communicate with SBA, obviously, if you think you can get your JV SBA, from SBA by that time before the RFP is due, then by all means do that. If not, then one other way of doing it is that you become the prime, and the other company becomes your sub, but all the 5 QPs, all the FEPs come from your sub. It's allowed, there's no problem. So it's only your name, in fact, your 8A standing that is used, but all the contracts come from your sub. So it's a discussion between you, as a business decision, how you should do it. You can create a normal JV, so that you couldn't go after 8A, you would go after a total business, small business track. Or that's the first one. Second one, you create a 8A JV, you have to get it registered by SBA. The bad thing about it is that you might not get it before the RFP is due. Third way of doing it is you can become the prime if the other company accepts it, of course. You can be the prime, but use all the contracts from the other company, and this way get to the points. Over.
Okay, great. I'm just letting you know, if you don't already have an AA in place, you're not going to get it in time for that.
Right, I doubt it. Yes.
Very tedious. So this person is, I think you're in our system. So if you need help with any of these things, you can contact your counselor for that. You can email us at ptac@gmu.edu, and we'll see if we can get you connected with somebody who can help you. Okay, next one. Are small businesses permitted to have a large business as a sub?
Okay, no, they cannot. If you bring in a sub that is large, then you have to go for the unrestricted track. You cannot go for the small business tracks. However, if you have a mentor protege JV and the mentor is large, then that's acceptable under GSA rulings for small business track. Other than the mentor protege system, the other JVs, if the sub is large, you cannot participate in small tracks, small business tracks. Over.
Okay, this one looks like it's kind of 2 different questions, but the same person. Are we allowed to break down the self-scoring matrix to our fit? I'm not really sure what that means, but she also asked, is it okay to calculate a monthly value if the project was below 1 year?
No, if the, let's go to the second one. If the project is below 1 year, you just use the total value. You cannot divide it by the months or anything like that, and then multiply, you know, prorate it to full year. So if it was a, say, $300,000 contract for two months, you can multiply it by 6 and say, okay, so it was, you know, $1.2 million or something for 1 year. You can't prorate if it's under 1 year. You use the total value. If it's 400,000, it's 400,000. If it's 600, it's 600. That's it. And for the first question, I don't truly understand it, but you cannot, firstly, you have to go for all the different factors to actually be able to be above 36. So it's not that you can just not go for FEPs, obviously. I mean, the second factor, federal experience projects. None of the factors are mandatory. So it's not that if you don't have federal experience projects, something will happen. No, they're not going to put you aside. But the more of these factors that you can go for, the better. I know that I'm not answering your question, but I just thought I should say this.
Okay, let's see. Is it recommended to sign up for the Symphony portal at this time?
Yes, by all means do that. They're going to, or at least when the RFP comes out, but they're going to, they said that very quickly, they're going to hold training webinars as well. I recommend that all companies who are going to submit for OASIS Plus do actually attend those webinars. They usually actually upload those webinars also to YouTube later on. So if you miss it, you can actually watch it from YouTube. But it's very important because that's the submission way of doing it, and you can't leave it to the last days. They're going to be quirks in doing it, so start early. They have a department, a very proactive help department, help desk that will answer you, but the sooner you can do, the better. So by all means, do as soon as possible.
Okay, are contracts on STARS 2 counted as MA-IDIQs?
That's one of the questions that has been submitted. Currently, no, but in fact, multiple award IDIQs do not cover, and they have been specific about this recently in the latest Q&A that they put out. Multiple award IDIQs mass contracts are not considered multiple award IDIQs. Now, STARS 2 is not a mass contract, but so it's not a schedule, but that's one of the things that they're going to clarify, I think, with the coming of the full RFP. But I know that you cannot use contracts, even large contracts, orders that you got under mass contracts that you might have under schedules for multiple award IDIQs. You can use them for QPs, which give you the highest score. I mean, those 70 to 90% of that score comes from QPs. But for FEPs, for task orders under multiple award IDIQs, you cannot use mass contracts. Over.
Okay. How can an IT past performance on IT NAICS be mapped on OASIS NAICS 541990 ? Or do we have to cert from CO? I think he's saying.
Okay, there are 3 ways of proving relevance. One is for each of those domains that I mentioned, the government in the RFP has listed all the, they call them auto-relevant NAICS codes and PSCs, by the way, because sometimes the NAICS code doesn't correspond, but the PSC does correspond. If you have an auto-relevant NAICS code or PSC on your contract document or on FPDS, that's all you have to do. You don't have to prove anything else. If you don't have that, then there are 2 ways of doing it. One is that you can prove from statement of work. So you can cite areas from your statement of work showing that the type of work that you did under that contract is relevant to that domain that you're targeting. If you're doing it that way, you also have to do another thing. Who says that, okay, this part of the statement of work does show that your contract, I'm talking from the government side, this part of this statement of work does show that you did work towards, say, R&D. But who says that it was $1 million or $500,000 value? Maybe you did $5,000 worth of that work, but the rest of the statement of work is about something else, some other domain. So to prove that, not only you have to cite from the statement of work, you have to also cite from the clean structure. So the clean structure must prove that at least, for example, if it's let's see, T&E, technical and engineering, that at least $500,000 annually was devoted to that part of the statement of work. If you cannot do that, or I should say, to make sure, there's a form that comes with OASIS Plus called JP3. You fill it up, you send it to the contracting officer, and he states the next code. Of course, you coordinate with him to what to say. He states the next code and the value, and he signs it, and that's proof. That's good proof. So you can actually, when you can't do it with the statement of work, when you can't do it with the auto-relevant, you can actually fill out that JP3, get it signed by the contracting officer, and that's considered, foolproof substantiation. Over.
Okay, thank you. If commercial experience is acceptable for QPs, how does that work with no CPARs?
Okay, there is a form called, actually, for now that you have mentioned, if you have a commercial contract, you obviously you do have contract documents, but you must fill that JP3 form as well. So there is a form JP3, you fill it up, you send it to your client, that commercial company that you worked with, and they have to sign it. That's for the contract and the domain relevance and the value and all that. Now, for CPARs, there's a form that comes with the RFP called JP6. It's like a CPAR, so it has different areas, says rate this contractor for scheduling, rate this contractor for management, and your contracting officer, so in quotes, in the private agency, they read it and they tick different boxes, and give you scoring. So to answer you, there's a form JP6, you send it to them, they fill it up, they send it back to you, and it becomes part of the contract document.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you. Our GSA IT NAICS 541512-19 be mapped to be used under 541990. Sorry, I had to read that again. So our GSA IT NAICS.
I understand. The 541, 541512 up to 519. These are IT NAICS codes. These NAICS codes by themselves cannot be used, so they're not considered auto-relevant. So either you have to show, as I mentioned, through the statement of work, or you have to show through getting that JP3 form filled by your contracting officer. But these NAICS codes, these are IT NAICS codes, and they're not supported by OASIS Plus, so you can't use those NAICS codes.
Okay, let's see the next one. We have an 8A JV for STARS 3, for which we got STARS 3, but with no PP. We have two corporations or corps, I don't know what he's saying there, have requisite PP. Can we use that JV to compete on the 8A track? You know what he's saying?
If you're going for if you're using, who is priming? If the JV is priming, then it has to have some past performance. Otherwise, what's the point of using that JV that doesn't have a past performance? So whatever company is priming, whether it's single company or it's a JV, it must have a past performance. If you're bringing in partners, then you can use, JV or whatever. But somehow you have to resolve those contracts. You need 5 QPs. I'm not even discussing FEPs, Federal Experience Projects, or certifications. You need 5 QPs, so 5 contracts. Those need to come from somewhere, either subcontractors or the JV has them. Over. Otherwise, you won't win. You can't win with 2 contracts or 3 contracts. You really need to have 5 contracts to get your score above 36 or around 40. Over.
Okay. Yeah, I think you just answered this, but someone said, what about if the cert comes from the sub? Can I go with CTA prime sub? Can we use a cert and FEP from sub? I think you just.
Okay, the FEPs you can use from the sub, but for the certs, no. The only thing that only the prime can provide are the certs system. So accounting system, whether you have FCL or not, and also CMMI and ISOs, they must come from the sub. If it's a JV, they can come from the JV or any of its members. But if you're a prime sub relationship, they must come from the prime.
Okay. Last one. On an 8A track for OASIS Plus, can facilities clearances be used from the partner/sub?
Can you read it again? 8A.
Yes, it said on 8A track for OASIS, can facilities clearance be used from partner/sub?
Oh, partner, no, as I said, the facility clearance must come from the prime. But if you have a JV, if the facility clearance is in the name of the JV, that's acceptable. Or maybe one of the members of the JV have a facility clearance, that's acceptable also. But if it's a prime sub relationship, facility clearance, accounting system, and CMMI and ISOs, the points you can get from those, they cannot come from the sub.
Okay, and that is all the questions. I would like to thank Ab for being here today. Somebody commented, thank you for an excellent and informative presentation. And on that note, thank you for the comment, Lydia. But you guys all will have a survey in your inbox. This is how we let our instructors know that their information that they passed along to you was valuable. Please be aware they do this for free for our clients. So we are very grateful for them. And since AB is new and GDI Consulting is new, we're looking forward to more webinars from them in the future. Anything else you'd like to share, Ab?
No, I would like to thank you and also thank everyone who participated. I have learned from your questions, and usually you learn more than the students. So I've learned more again doing this, and I thank everyone for this.
Okay. Hope everybody has a great day, and please complete the surveys for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.